Great Spectre Boxing here with another video. As always, like, comment, subscribe, show your boy some love. Hey, and don't forget, hit that bell notification, that way you can keep up to date on the latest content from my channel.
I think that the only fight that really interests Terence in the welterweight, with Spence on the shelf, let's be honest about it. You know, we don't know when Spence will be fighting again, and he shouldn't fight unless he's fully healed. So the only one that really is of interest to Terence is Porter. Manny, even when he was with me, repeatedly turned down a Crawford fight. So, I mean, Garcia means nothing for me. So it's me, Porter. Now, I'll try to make the Porter fight, because Porter gave Spence a hell of a fight, and he'll give Terence a hell of a fight. If not, we have all these great junior welterweights moving up. Prograis would be a great opponent. Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, all of whom are going to be ready in 2020 to take Terence on. And if Terence wants to fight for another title, which is a possibility, we'll arrange that, you know, going up in weight.
The 154 champion, Patrick.
What?
The 154 champion you're talking about, Patrick?
The 154, yeah. And then maybe 160.
Okay.
I mean, if Canelo could get down to 160, that would be a huge fight.
So Canelo and
Crawford at 160.
Great Spectre Boxing here with another video. As always, like, comment, subscribe. Also hit the bell notification if you want to stay updated on the latest content that I add to the channel. Again, I'm trying to add more content to the channel. I'm trying to get more active. Because I just do, you know, I just think some of this stuff needs to be heard from a fresh voice, you know, when it comes to reporting or, you know, giving opinions about boxing, because everybody thinks their opinion is fact. And the thing of it is just your opinion, and it comes from your perspective and how you see things, how you view things. So let me give you a different perspective. Again, welcome you guys to Great Spectre Boxing. If you've never seen this, I'm just finna give y'all a little brief overview of what you just heard, which was Bob Arum alluding to Terence Bud Crawford facing Canelo at 160 pounds. And man, it's comical, so to speak. He said that besides Sean Porter, not that they don't have another opponent or opponent that Bud Crawford can fight, they're not interested. Bud is not interested in fighting anybody outside of Errol Spence, who conveniently is shelved, and Sean Porter. So they're not interested in fighting anybody outside of Porter or Errol Spence because of their last fight. And they said because Pacquiao won't take the fight, did you offer him a fight this time? They said no, we're not. They didn't offer him. Pacquiao won't take the fight. Okay, whatever. And then the other thing he said was that that Danny Garcia, they weren't interested in a Danny Garcia fight, I guess. So the only person that's left is Sean Porter at this point. He's the last man standing. But there is another name, and I said this in my last video, that nobody's mentioning, is Keith Thurman. Keith Thurman is still there. He barely lost his championship to Pacquiao. Some people may beg to disagree, but that's how I seen it in my opinion, because I think he made up a lot of ground in the later rounds. And Pacquiao did look gassed at the end of that fight. Nobody's mentioning Keith Thurman. And then he said that, you know, he was mentioning junior welterweights. He didn't mention Ugas. It's very... is very interesting on how he put it. But it is interesting to say that he picked Sean Porter. I don't think that they really want a Sean Porter fight. I think that's just a name, and that's somebody he can say. And he says he's trying to make that Sean Porter fight. But Sean Porter has in the past and repetitively said that Bud Crawford is like his brother. And he don't really, he's not very interested in a Bud Crawford versus Sean Porter matchup. But who's really, like he's saying, who's left on the table at this point as top welterweights? They're not interested in any other welterweight, and they conveniently only are interested in Sean Porter, who looks at Bud Crawford like a brother. So, I'm telling you, man, you gotta kind of listen to this objectively and read between the lines when you're listening to this guy talk. This guy is leading you down a path. He's walking you down. He's been a promoter and a successful promoter in his business for a while. Even though I don't like the way he does business or handles his fighters, especially the black fighters. But he has been successful in his business. It's for a reason. He's been at the top, of his craft. And it's because, he can manipulate the media. So the next thing he said is he was alluding to Terence Crawford, Bud Crawford, either fighting a junior welterweight who's coming up, Taylor or Prograis, or moving up to 154. And the guy mentioned maybe Texera, whatever the hell the damn dude name is. He didn't mention Charlo. He didn't mention who else is at 154? The unified champ. Oh man, this guy always Philly Cat. Whatever. He didn't mention none of the other champs at 154, and then he immediately jumped to 160. He didn't mention anybody else at 160, but a fighter that they were alluding to yesterday, as Crawford made his little statement about him fighting next at 160, the fighter that they're alluding to, it looks like the cat is out of the bag, that they're possibly looking at a matchup to cash in with Canelo. And that's what I believe Bud Crawford really was when he said, you think I'm playing? I think they are looking to cash in. And if they're going to cash in, what is the biggest way to cash in? It would be a Canelo versus Bud Crawford fight. Being as you don't have to take the risk of fighting 147 Earl Spence, which we don't know how high that reward could be, but let's just face it. Even at the height of Earl Spence's popularity that's on the rise, he's not the draw that Canelo is. And people may beg to differ now and say, look at Canelo's numbers. Man, look, let me tell you something. Canelo in May, Cinco de Mayo, is the biggest thing going right now. And if he just needs a dancing partner. The thing of it is like we've been looking at his opponents, up until this point, just haven't been up to par. But you put him up with another name, and there you go. There you have it. You got Canelo is going to be the biggest seller in May versus a top opponent. So they could be looking to cash in. I'll talk about that a little more in a second. But I'm just alluding to the conversation that I was talking about in my last video. Like, who would he fight? Who would Terence Bud Crawford fight at 160 when he was alluding to moving up to his very next fight at 160? So he's fighting now in December. That gives him till somewhere around May. I don't know when Cinco de Mayo falls, but they usually like to have it the weekend before, the weekend after Cinco de Mayo. So that's going to be probably the biggest thing smoking if Terence Bud Crawford can be that potential opponent for Canelo in May. Fighting today, that gives him plenty of time. And he says he wants to fight 3 times, but I'm pretty sure he'll hold back from trying to get an early fight in next year to fight a Canelo Alvarez, which he alluded to would be his next fight at 160. And he was adamant when he was saying it. So I'm just putting 2 and 2 together, and I'm thinking Canelo versus Terence Crawford, May of 2020. And that would be a big splash. And it also would be a slap in the face of PBC from Al Heyman if he can land that fight, saying, we don't need your fighters at 147. we can make a huge fight at 160. And then the up and downside of that. Upside makes a lot of money. Terence Bud Crawford finally can make a shitload of money in his career. Downside, if he loses, what does he really lose from fighting a guy who just knocked out a 175-pound champion? So you get what I'm saying? Like, there's an upside to this that Bob Arum, man, this guy, hey, I cannot knock it. I don't like him the way he does business, but I can't knock him that if he gets cornered, he's finding himself a scapegoat, a way out. And that way out is cashing in, even if it's at the sacrifice of the fighter. But what do you gain from the fight? You gain wealth. Something that Terence Crawford up to this point in his career has not had, being that he's not a very promoted fighter, a guy who goes out and does a lot of interviews or promote himself very well, or his team doesn't promote him very well either. So what do? You go out and you fight a cash cow, a guy you do not have to promote for. Golden Boy will do a spectacular job of promoting that fight. And this is ingenious by Bob Arum. And it makes Terence Crawford be a sacrificial lamb, and say he goes 12, even if he wins, oh shit, now you got a new face of boxing. You have to look at it from that. So I take a step back and I look at it from both angles. Man, this is win-win for Bob Arum. Whether Terence Crawford loses or wins, he still has him as a 147-pound champ. He also, if he did win, he will become a 160-pound middleweight champ and a champion in, I believe that would be his fourth division world champ. And then he could still potentially go and market him down at 154. I don't think he'd make him unify up there at 160. Those are some beasts up there at 162. So yeah, I think he would make him unify. Not unify. It would make him move back down, maybe capture another belt at 154, making him a five division world champ. It's the possibilities become endless at that point. But if it doesn't go the way, Crawford, if it's not Crawford Knight fighting a Canelo, then he still can go back down to 147 and still say he's the baddest man there. It's always a win-win when those guys jump up in weight and fight those guys. The only downside is if he gets hurt. If he gets hurt going up. Now that's the ill effect. But it's a sacrifice of being hurt. It's the same potential risk that Mikey Garcia took going up against Errol Spence. Yeah, I'll go up in weight at the risk of being hurt. But if I don't get hurt, I get the cash in. And that's what happened with Mikey Garcia. He cashed in. And that's the same thing that this potential fight would give for Terence Bud Crawford. It's a legacy fight. It's a fight where it's always the smaller man has the win-win situation. Canelo doesn't have the win-win situation. The only thing he can gain from this is money. You know what I mean? He already is the face of boxing. He's still the face of boxing, contrary to what a lot of people believe when they say AJ or maybe Deontay Wilder. The heavyweight division is a sparkle, but nobody's outselling Canelo Alvarez with a good opponent in May. I'm sorry, it's not happening next year. He can make probably twice as much as anybody else can make, in the whole year combined with several fights in one fight. So, don't give me that. I'm just speaking true facts and actually looking at this from my objective standpoint. But again, who would win this fight and actually win this fight? I think it's a tall hill to climb to say that 135-pound Terence Bud Crawford goes up to 160 and defeats Canelo Alvarez. I'm sorry. He may be able to outbox him, but I think that at some point in the fight, he could get caught and hurt pretty bad. I seen Terence Crawford rocked by Gamboa. I don't think that Canelo Alvarez is over there slapping pillows. I don't think Canelo Alvarez has the power that we think he has, as far as getting that knockout against Kovalev. Because let me tell you something. He didn't knock out Triple G. He didn't knock out what other fighter can I say? Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. He didn't knock out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who stood in front of him for 12 rounds and allowed him to he was just basically a punching bag for 12 rounds for Canelo. Canelo never knocked out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who obviously came there for a check. He didn't even hit Canelo back, so... and all that time, he never knocked him out. So I don't believe in this power that they saying Canelo has because he knocked out a 175-pound fighter. Again, Kovalev has been exposed by Andre Ward and I forget the other guy's name who actually knocked him out as well. So he had already been knocked out twice. And that was a third knockout, and that's suspect because the way the fight went, it just looked like he was cashing in as well. So again, I'm not really believing in that power that Canelo has, but at 160 versus Terence Crawford, I believe he has enough power to hurt Terence Crawford. And that's just the fact of the matter. Those guys are smaller guys. I've seen Terence Crawford rock before, like I said, by Gamboa. So I believe Canelo is more than capable of dropping Terence Crawford multiple occasions in that fight. If he goes about it the right way and can corner him. But the thing of it is I've never been very impressed with his trailing technique. He's not that good of a pressure fighter, walking guys down and cutting off the ring, Canelo being. So that would be still an interesting fight if Terence Crawford can stay upright. I think that he can outbox him. I've seen Amir Khan have certain success up until the point where he was knocked out outboxing Canelo. So it's not like I don't think anybody can outbox Canelo. Canelo does not handle speed and movement very well. So in different angles, and that's something that Terence Bud Crawford can give him a lot of. So that, in my opinion, would be. I wouldn't say even a 50-50 fight. I'm still weighing highly that Canelo could at some point catch and hurt Terence Crawford, and it just depends on what type of 160 Canelo you get. But that is an interesting fight, and I would be very up for that fight. But it's just the goes to show you Bob Arum has a secondary plan. He has something else he can go to, another option that he doesn't have to sit up there and rely on PBC to make that fight at 147, which is a shame because we want to see him fight the best guys at 147. Keith Thurman's name, again, wasn't mentioned. Only name they said that they're interested in is Sean Porter, which is quote unquote like a brother to Terence Bud Crawford. So I don't think that fight is going to be happening. But it would be an interesting fight, and I would want to see the Sean Porter versus Keith Thurman, because it would be a like opponent in Errol Spence, giving Errol Spence also time to recover and see what he's going to do moving forward in 2020. So this is a very intriguing thought. I don't know how true this is, if they're really, but based on my thought process on how I think Bob Arum is thinking, I believe that this is very much on the table. And I think that they'd only do it with Canelo. I don't think they would take that chance with Triple G. Even though I'm not that fond of Triple G. I think he's past his prime and not as dominant at this point in his career. But I don't think it's just the price versus reward. Because if he get hurt by a Triple G, versus the reward of actually getting a high payday off of Triple G. I think Triple G is a name, but he's not that the name. He's not the cash cow. And the cash cow, again, is Canelo. So I believe that they would be more than likely looking at Canelo to cash out. And man, that really is intriguing. That's something I would be looking forward to with Errol Spence on the shelf. But again, I think Terence Bud Crawford should be fighting the guys at his weight. He's campaigning at 147. He has unfinished business at 147. He hasn't beaten anybody of significance. And to go up to 160 would be taking that Kell Brook route, where he avoided Errol Spence to go fight Triple G, and they in turn used that as an excuse when he lost to Errol Spence because he was hurt in the Triple G fight, saying he was already damaged goods. I don't want to see that for Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence later, saying that he was damaged goods already by Canelo or another 160-pound fighter. I would like to see Terence Bud Crawford in his prime fighting another in prime 147-pound fighter. That's Dre Spector, and that's all I got for you today. Let me know what y'all think of this potential matchup in the comment section. I'm really ready to debate. Man, this kind of got me going. The thought process of the whole thing with Bob Arum really got me going.